Octopus's Garden sounds like Ringo Starr's happy little children's song, but it began during one of the lowest moments of his Beatles career.
I'd like to be under the sea.
On October 22, 1968, while the group was recording the White Album, Ringo became convinced that he was playing badly and that John, Paul, and George were happier without him. He temporarily quit the band, took his wife Maureen and their children, and escaped to Sardinia. The other Beatles continued working without him, recording back in the USSR, with Paul McCartney playing the main drum part. Ringo, meanwhile, ended up spending part of his 2-week break aboard a yacht belonging to actor Peter Sellers. One afternoon, Ringo and his family asked the yacht's crew for fish and chips. Instead of the familiar cod he expected, they were served squid, which Ringo had apparently never eaten before. After lunch, he stayed on deck talking with the captain, who explained that octopuses gather stones, shells, bottles, cans, and other objects around their underwater dens. Ringo had a guitar with him, and after smoking some marijuana, he began turning the idea into a song. The captain's story was not simply sailor folklore. Marine researchers have documented octopuses using stones, shells, and even discarded human objects to build, strengthen, or conceal their shelters, although they are protecting a den rather than planting a decorative garden. Ringo returned to London after receiving an affectionate telegram from the other Beatles. When he entered the studio, he found flowers covering the room and his drum kit. The song returned with him, but it was still fairly basic because Ringo only knew a small number of chords on guitar and piano. During the January 1969 Get Back sessions, George Harrison sat with him and helped develop the chord changes and arrangement. And their work was captured on film, creating the unusual sight of one Beatle patiently helping another finish a song while the group itself was slowly falling apart. Ringo remained the sole credited writer, but George's lead guitar ideas became one of the finished recording's most recognizable features. The Beatles began recording Octopus's Garden properly on April 26, 1969. They completed 32 takes of the backing track before settling on one. John played finger-picked rhythm guitar, Paul played bass, George supplied lead guitar, and Ringo handled drums and a temporary vocal. Paul later added piano, while he and George recorded backing voices that were heavily processed to make them sound as though they were bubbling underwater. For an even less sophisticated aquatic effect, Ringo blew through a straw into a closely mic'd glass of water. His final lead vocal was recorded on July 18th, followed by 5 stereo mixes and, strangely, 7 mono mixes, even though Abbey Road was never intended for release in mono. Octopus's Garden became the only song on the album given that unnecessary mono treatment. Of course, the underwater party in the lyrics was completely fictional, but the need to escape behind it was very real. Ringo had left the Beatles feeling unwanted, overworked, and surrounded by arguments, and a peaceful hiding place where nobody could find him or tell him what to do must have sounded especially attractive. And that gives the song a slightly sad center beneath its cheerful guitars and cartoon bubbles. Released on Abbey Road in September of 1969, it became only the second Beatles song written entirely by Ringo, and the final released Beatles recording to feature him as a lead singer. What began as a nervous breakdown, an unexpected plate of squid, and a conversation with a yacht captain became Ringo's warmest contribution to the Beatles' last recorded album.